Hello there, viewers. Welcome to this episode of Apensach Computers, where today I'll be showing you how to take off or disassemble or replace the heatsink on this HP D530. Now, this can be helpful for replacing the processor, cleaning the heatsink, replacing the heatsink, replacing the fan, just all sorts of stuff like that. I'll also be showing all you guys how to do all that stuff today, just so then you know. Now, this computer does have a weird design, and there were literally no videos online about it, so that's why I'm making this one. So, obviously what you need to do first is take off the case, which you just lift that and pull out, and then there you go. Now you gotta take off the front, so you just lift these three, pull them out like that, and then, off it comes. I didn't expect it to fall like that, but you know, yeah. I obviously don't have everything in here, but there would be a bunch of cords in here. But now you just lift this up. It does take quite a bit of strength to do, but there you go. Now I would suggest taking out your motherboard, because that just makes things easier. So the way you do that is, well, first of all, you disconnect all your cables, which I've already done. And, you know, taking out the RAM and all that stuff. Just be careful. Now, if you're messing with the motherboard, always remember to either wear an anti-static band, or if I had the power supply in here, you would tap both of your fingers on the power supply to neutralize the electric shock. Also note where all the cables were plugged in too, because you gotta re-plug them back in. So that's where the power supply would go. This would be the hard drive, that would be the floppy drive, that would be the CD drive. They're also labeled. So primary IDE, that's the hard drive, floppy disk. So the way you would take out your motherboard is actually pretty easy. So first you gotta remove this, which just comes out with a good pull. And out that comes. This was pretty genius by HP, by the way. So whoever thought of that was pretty clever. Then from here, you would pull this lever up, and then you would pull out. Now the whole motherboard is free, so now you can just take it out. Just like that. Once again, make sure all your cables are unplugged, like this case fan. So then that's unplugged. Alright, so this is where the fun begins. Now just be very careful not to break anything, because these things are pretty fragile. Because I did break this little thing right here. See, there's supposed to be a plastic thing right there, but I broke it trying to figure it out. And this is also broken now, too, like this fan. See? So just be careful not to break anything. So, these little levers right here. If you were watching this video, you probably already tried pushing them down. But, you know, that doesn't really do anything. But what you gotta do is, well, first of all, you gotta do that. But this little thing down here, you gotta pull it out. You gotta push down, pull this out, and then release. And then the entire thing will come out. Like that. And then it's the same one, it's the same thing for the other side. So just push down, we'll pull out first, then push down, then come out, and then like that. And then this comes out. Then you just gently take this off and also unplug the fan. So take that out, and then there's your processor. So just a visual idea of what's going on here. There's the pin. There's a little hook right there, and then that hook goes around this plastic part right there, and that's what I broke over here. So that's why this one doesn't really stay on very well. So there's two of these. There's one on that side as well. So when you pull this one back, it sort of frees up this one, but then when you sort of push down on it and then pull that one out, that pulls out that hook, so then it can be freely pulled out. So how you replace the processor, first of all, you gotta clean it off. So you take some isopropyl alcohol here, you can find this probably at your local Walgreens. Open it, take a little bit of paper towel, put it in there, just get a little bit on there, just get it to where it's like a little damp. So then you gently wipe off the processor. And this processor probably hasn't seen the light of day since it's been put in here, so this heatsink stuff is probably really stuck to it. So you just gotta wipe it off until it's completely clean. Sort of like that. And take a dry one and then dry it off. So then it'll get some more stuff off. Dry off the sides. then you got a clean processor. So then, to uninstall it, take this little latch right here, pull it out so then that little notch isn't blocking it, lift it up, and then the processor is free. So then you just gently grab the sides. That's what these little cutouts are here for. Grab the sides, and then gently pull it out. And then you've got your processor. Now I don't have a replacement processor because I don't really have any plans to do anything with this motherboard, so you would just take your replacement processor, and if it's clean like this, you don't need to clean it off, but if it's dirty, then you gotta redo what I just showed you how to do. And also, before you put it in, be sure to inspect to see if you have any bent pins. Which doesn't look like I have any here, which is good. So you gotta take this, see this little arrow right there? Gotta line it up with that little arrow right there. Or you can see where the pins are not there on the socket, and you see them on the processor. So you just line those up, gently place it on there, move it around a little bit, and then you should hear it click a little bit when you put it in. Now never force a processor in, because you could bend one of these pins, and that has happened to me before. With this processor right here, you can see all these little bent pins. And now this processor is unusable, and you can probably try to bend back the pins if you get like a mechanical pencil and then you take out the lead, and then just sort of slide it in one of these, and then you can sort of bend it back. But if you bend it too much, then the pins will fall out, and two have fallen out of this, so this is unusable. This is a Celeron that was in one of my old computers, but just be very careful with the pins and do not touch them. So then once it's in, you just press this down, and you'll hear that click. It'll go around that notch, and then that'll hold it down. So now the processor is in. And then you gotta do the same cleaning process to the heatsink, so then there's no formula right there. So just take your isopropyl alcohol, put your thing there, turn it over, and then it should be just about as wet as you want it. So then you just gently rub it off. And all this stuff around here is dust, by the way, and I'll show you how to clean that off. So now you take your dry paper towel and then you wipe it off just like you did on the processor. All this dust is coming off, and it's pretty disgusting. And now, there's a little bit right there. Now, your heatsink is free to use again with your new processor. And I'll show you how to apply thermal paste in a little bit. So now, you gotta take out the heatsink because I need to clean it because of all the dust that just came out. And a clean heatsink always keeps the processor cool, and which then makes your computer run better. So, in this heatsink, you gotta locate these two little screws right here. Then you've gotta unscrew them. You actually don't really need to unscrew them, you just need to loosen them to where they'll come out. So like that's good, to where it's not protecting that. Same thing for the other side. And now, you just pull it out. And then, there you go. Now you can take your favorite vacuum cleaner, make sure it's on suction only mode, remove the hose, and figure out where you put the heatsink because, oh, there it is. Now I've got a handy little computer cleaning kit here, but if you've got a brush attachment that came with your vacuum cleaner, strongly recommended. So if you got this little kit, you just hook it up there, then, oh, shoot, turn it on, then brush away the dust. And we're done. So you'll see two giant screws here. The second one is hidden by the heatsink, but once when you take that out, you can now unscrew it. And it'll take off the fan. There's like little tabs on the side. And the only real way that I figured out how to take this off is just, you know, by force. But be very careful with these tabs because I broke one right there, I believe it is. Yeah, right there. So just be careful with what you're doing. So now we can clean out the fan. Now we'll do a fan replacement. So how you take off the fan. So you see these two screws here. Now the second screw is hidden by the heatsink when it's on. So you have to take off the heatsink to get to this screw. So now you just unscrew these two screws. So then once you've unscrewed the screws like I just did, you just lift it off, and now the fan is uninstalled. So now you take your new fan and you gotta make sure it fits first. So then you just place your new fan on the ground, I guess. Lay the heatsink on the fan and line up the holes. And then screw in your screws. Alright, so now the fan is installed. You gotta make sure that the screws are tight so that it stays on there good. And should look something like this if you get this fan. So now, to reinstall your now clean heatsink, this is all copper by the way, it's actually pretty heavy. You just slide it down in there, you gotta line the screws up with that, and then in there, and then you tighten these screws. And now when you tighten the screws, it should stay in like that. So now I'll show you how to put on thermal paste on the processor. Now I'm not actually gonna do it because, you know, I'm not gonna use this processor again in this computer. All heatsink is generic. This computer doesn't need any special heatsink, and neither do most computers. So you just take off this tip and then you just gently apply some. Usually a pea-sized is enough. Then when you put this on there, it'll squish it and then spread it out to all the sides of the processor. So once you have that installed, which I'm not going to do, but yeah, you just put this back on, and then you slide your pins back in, just like we did earlier. So you gotta press it, you gotta do exactly the opposite of what you just did. So you gotta press it down enough to where it lines up with the hole, push down on the end, and release. And you do that for both sides. Slide it back in, make sure this side is lined up. Now that side is in that hole over there. Push down and release. And then now your heatsink is installed once again. And now your computer won't sound like a diesel truck with this new fan on there. So then you just plug in your fan to where the CPU fan is labeled. And then now you have installed a new fan, you've cleaned your heatsink, and you've gotten a new processor. And by the way, processor researching, this is a socket 478 motherboard, so really only socket 478s will work, but you should also check with your BIOS because some socket 478 processors may not work. The best processors and the fastest processors are the Pentium 4s. This has got a Pentium 4 already in it. This is a pretty sure it's a 2.4 gigahertz. Either that's 2.66. I don't know if Pentium 4 hyper-threading will work in here, but you can definitely try it. Pentium 4 Extreme Editions are just overpriced, so don't go for those. So I would suggest you should go for like a 3.2 gigahertz model or something like that. So yeah, so then you just install your motherboard back in. So you gotta line up those with those holes right there. So remember, these are all the ports that go through there. So just set it down there, then you just sort of got to find the holes, and when it clicks it should go in, and you just push it in, and then your motherboard is back. So then you got to reconnect all your cords, which in my case I only have one, which is the chassis fan, which that connects there. And also, before you do this, I would suggest taking pictures of all the cords going in wherever they go, so then you know where they go. So then you would connect, you know, all your IDE drives there, reconnect your power, And then you gotta put this back in. If you have one of these, this can be kind of fun to reinstall. You just gotta line those up with there, and then line those up in there. Once when the pins are lined up, you just give it a good little push in, and then it should be in for good. So then just reconnect all those, close that, and then you gotta put the front back on, which you just insert those into there, and then push these back in place. And then the cover is also kind of fun to install. Usually about there is good. Then you got to press down on both of these sides to make sure that they're in. And then you somehow slide it in. Like that. And then now your computer is back. Then just plug it in, turn it on, which I'm not going to do because I don't have the thermal paste. And then, yeah. I really hope this video was helpful, because it really would have been helpful to me when I was struggling with the socket. So there you go. Peace out.